Welcome, everyone. Let's dive into a discussion about the Bhopal disaster, that tragic industrial event in 1984 that still haunts us.
I'm ready to get into it. It's such an intense, sobering topic, right?
Absolutely, yep. So, the disaster happened at a pesticide plant run by Union Carbide in Bhopal, India. It's infamous for using a chemical called methyl isocyanate, or MIC, which is, well, extremely toxic.
Right.
The chemical needed very strict controls, which were sadly neglected.
So we're talking about a situation where poor management really cost lives.
Right, exactly. And the warning signs were there. The plant had been cutting corners on maintenance and safety systems. You know, things like refrigeration and scrubbers that keep those chemicals in check were either malfunctioning or completely
Yeah.
non-functional. It's like, a car missing brakes, but on a much larger scale.
That's a vivid analogy. And I remember reading that water somehow got into the MIC storage tank, which triggered a rapid chemical reaction. How does that even work?
So basically, water made its way into the storage tank, tank 610, and when water interacts with MIC, it can trigger a violent reaction. It's like when you mix oil with water and suddenly get a mess you didn't anticipate. But in this case, the reaction was catastrophic.
Wow, that's horrifying. And aside from the water issue, what else set the stage for such a disaster?
Well, besides that, critical safety systems like the scrubbers and flare towers were not operational. Plus, there was a severe lack of trained personnel. Cost-cutting measures led to almost negligent
Right.
maintenance. These factors combined, and you ended up with a perfect storm.
That's almost unbelievable. How neglect in one area can cause so many things to fall apart.
Exactly. And then there's the tragic night itself. On December 2nd, 1984, the MIC gas began leaking with no proper warning. There was no siren, no alarm for the residents, and the toxic cloud just spread silently into the nearby areas.
Yep.
It's chilling to think about.
Right. The lack of an alert system must have exacerbated the casualties. People just woke up coughing, gasping for breath.
Exactly. Hospitals, for instance, were caught completely unprepared, unaware of what they were dealing with, the type of gas, its properties, everything. It's as if they were thrown into chaos with no plan whatsoever.
That's distressing. How could something like this slip through the cracks?
It's a mix of management and system failures. The plant lacked a proper hazard analysis, or even something like a HAZOP study, which is critical for identifying risks. And regulatory oversight was pretty
Exactly.
much absent. All of these oversights, created the conditions for disaster.
So there's no single mistake, but rather a cascade of failures, right?
That's right. And when you look at what could have been done, it all comes down to proper safety and maintenance. If they had maintained strict safety systems, ensured that the personnel were well trained, done comprehensive hazard analyses, and had a clear emergency plan, the disaster might have been prevented.
Yes. But wasn't maintenance an ongoing challenge even in other industries? I mean, some would argue that, a bit of cost cutting is standard practice.
True, cost cutting does happen, but this was a case of extreme negligence. The chemical involved is highly reactive and dangerous. The potential for human loss was enormous. It's like having a ticking time bomb and knowing it, yet choosing not to defuse it properly.
Right.
Safety here should have been viewed as an investment in human life, not a cost to be trimmed.
I see your point, but some might say that these are tough economic decisions. Yet, when you consider the scale of human tragedy, it seems unjustifiable.
Exactly my thought. The additional expenses on proper safety measures are marginal compared to the loss of thousands of lives and the long-term impact on the community. It's an ethical imperative, not just a business decision.
It almost sounds like there were known warnings that were just ignored, huh?
Precisely. This disaster wasn't an unforeseen accident. Multiple warnings were ignored, and the systematic risks were underestimated or deliberately overlooked. The tragedy of Bhopal serves as a harsh lesson on the cost of negligence.
Yes, and the aftermath was equally devastating. I mean, the healthcare system, emergency services, they all seemed caught off guard by the sheer scale of it.
You're spot on. There was no coordinated effort, no proper emergency preparedness plan. Hospitals didn't even know what type of gas they were dealing with. This lack of readiness compounded the tragedy.
So, in essence, the Bhopal disaster teaches us that investing in safety, proper training, and regular maintenance isn't just about regulatory compliance. It's about protecting human lives.
Absolutely. It tells us that safety must be an uncompromisable priority. A well-maintained, thoroughly analyzed system might cost more initially, but as we see from Bhopal, the alternative is absolutely catastrophic.
Yep. And let's not forget the importance of emergency preparedness. Without knowing the right response to sudden disasters, even the best safety protocols can fall short.
Right. That's why establishing robust emergency systems, including alarm and evacuation procedures, is crucial. Imagine if residents had even a basic warning system. Perhaps some lives could have been saved.
Exactly. It brings to mind that sometimes it's not about the inevitability of risk, but about how well prepared you are to mitigate that risk.
Exactly. And it's also a lesson in accountability. Systematic overlooking of hazards and ignoring warnings should never be acceptable.
It's almost like the disaster was the result of stacking too many layers of ignored responsibility on top of each other.
Yes, indeed. And that's why the call to remember Bhopal is so essential. It's a stark reminder that when you cut corners in safety, the consequences are irreversible and heart-wrenching.
Right. So, what do you think is the most crucial takeaway for industries today from this event?
The main takeaway is that safety is non-negotiable. Proper hazard analysis, diligent maintenance, well-trained staff, and robust emergency systems are investments in human lives. Companies must avoid the temptation to trim costs at the expense of safety. This disaster teaches us that a single failure in protocol can lead to widespread tragedy.
I completely agree. It's a tough lesson, but a necessary one for ensuring we don't repeat history.
Absolutely. When you weigh the cost of safety measures against the irreversible damage of a disaster, it becomes clear that cutting corners is a risk no one can afford.
Yep. And it reinforces the idea that our responsibility as engineers and industry professionals is to prioritize human life above all else.
Precisely. So, as we conclude, the story of Bhopal isn't just a recount of a disaster. It's a constant reminder that decisions in industrial safety have profound, potentially fatal repercussions. We must learn every day from these past mistakes to pave the way for a safer future.
Thanks for this deep dive. It's a conversation that really underscores the weight of responsibility in industrial practices.
Indeed, it's been enlightening. Let's carry these lessons forward and ensure that safety remains our top priority.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining in this important discussion.